Well, welcome to the show. I'm really honestly, when you left, after we left our conversation when we met at the coffee shop, I was so on fire that my own soul was so full. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm very excited. It's so encouraging when the stories of, our life's work are touching to others, because so many people don't have that reaction. So thank you.
Yeah, it's so, and here, what filled my soul is, we're both moms, we're both wives, we both love to serve and help people, that we have in common. You live here sometimes, but you also are international, and you live in a world that I have only heard about and I don't know about, and yet I know it's true and it's happening, but I don't live in it daily. And it inspired my own faith, because, we can look at, I went on one mission trip my entire life. I went to Puerto Rico, which was, the people were great. My team was great. I knew on that trip, and I went with my daughter, I knew on that trip, I was not made for missions, at least in that context that I went. I felt like I just failed the people I went to serve. I failed the team I went with, because I just, having to wait for the translator would trip me up every time I had to say something. And I just felt like I was messing up all over the place. And I just thought, man, this is not my sweet spot. I knew that then. But I'm always inspired. One of the things that, when I listened to your story, one of the things that I was really inspired by, it's stories like yours. When I hear my own life and my testimony, I've come to see this is a gift that really God gave me, is that, I look at stories like yours and like missionaries where, and people just do amazing things where you just go, wow, how does that happen? How does that work? How do they do what they do? Mm-hmm. And I could just be like, whoa. But when I hear my own, I have come to learn, I don't have a wow story in the sense of like, wow. One in particular, when you had just everything go down, you had like no community, it was during COVID, and no communication, no nothing, all of that. And literally it's like, well, what do we do now? I look at your story like, wow, you literally had to be like, all right, God, you're going to have to show up, because we are like, everything is shut down. Mm-hmm. And those are stories that I only read about. When I look at my own life, what I found is mine is not a wow like that, but mine is so common. And by common, that doesn't diminish the value by any means. It just means a lot of people tell me that what is special about mine is that it is so common. So like I relate to the girl next door. I could relate to the mom who's struggling. I could relate. But when I hear stories like yours, I get really inspired, because it's a life that I don't know about. And yet I'm speaking to a wife, mom, woman who is just like me, with a heart for God, for her family, and for people around her. And so that's what really inspired me. It's a long way to say that really is what inspired me. So I'm really honored that you're here.
Well, thank you. That's so funny that you say that, because I'm like, my own story of faith is actually quite boring.
That's so funny.
So, I think what we're familiar with, we don't maybe value as much, if that's a way of saying it. But mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're what I love to hear people's stories that, and you hear it in anybody's story if you're willing to like lean in and listen. And this is what I love to hear. And you shared it when we sat for coffee. So I love to hear the pivots in life that people have, because I think we get so thrown off by pivots. And like this, because it doesn't line up to what we thought life was going to be. And like, what are you doing now? I thought I was going in this direction, and now I'm like here. And so I want to hear yours again, so the viewers can hear it, because especially, I don't know, when we're young, we have a lot of zeal to think our life is going to go a certain way. We have dreams and aspirations and all those kind of things. And then life takes you on a journey. And you go to places, maybe you have, doors shut, opportunities shut, people maybe leave and you have all these twists and turns, and you don't see that when you're young. It's not until you're older that you go, hindsight's always 2020. So could you share, you went to college as a history major, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell, can you take me back there and then just that timeline that got you where you are today?
Sure. I'm just going to say from the beginning, I think just for the sake of security and privacy, we'll leave out organizational names in this conversation. And we can figure out how to contact later if they want to follow up. But so growing up, I was going to live next door to my mom. That's what I wanted to do as a kid. And
I love that.
For undergraduate, I chose history because it was my favorite subject in high school. My parents did not go to college, so they were like, just go to college. And they did try to encourage me to do something more practical, like maybe teaching history. But my sister did teaching, and I didn't want to do what she did. So, so during that undergraduate years, I went to Colorado for undergraduate, and I did a study abroad. I always knew I wanted to. Both my sisters did study abroad in high school, and I knew I wanted to do it in college. And I wanted it to include the foreign language requirement for my bachelor's. And I didn't want that foreign language to be Russian. So I ended up going to Egypt. And that really changed my life. It was just a semester, but it was from that point that I could say this is a driving theme in my life. And it was just being around Muslims that are so devout and really pursuing God. And that really, first of all, convicted me, but also very much touched me that from my perspective, they're locked in a spiritual prison and they don't even realize it, like Plato's metaphor of the cave. So I came home, graduated college, moved back home to Oregon, lived with my parents, and I did the Perspectives on the World Mission Movement class through a local church. And at the end of that, they challenged us to do a short-term mission trip. So the next one our church was doing was to Honduras. And so I did that. I was like, okay. And so God uses really silly things. It was during that trip that they had like the host. This was a part-time woman who was like retired, but her job was to escort these teams around so that the full-time workers could keep working. And she had a nice haircut and good shoes, like fashionable.
That's all that matters to a woman is good haircut, nice shoes.
And in my mind, I saw it in my mind that cross-cultural workers wear muumuus and work by candlelight, right?
Like, isn't it funny how we have these, perceptions of what a role or another community would be like, and we're so wrong.
Even though I had spent significant time in Egypt, I still had this. So it wasn't until I saw somebody, I was like, oh, I could do this. I'd also the job. I was like, I could do that job. And it made it more accessible to me. So I came home and I spent 7 years just getting involved in the Portland area with a group that does like cultural outreach to immigrants in the Capitol Hill area, and English classes, citizenship classes, driving classes, that kind of thing. And then I went to Jordan with a couple from that group, and they were just like, we're going, you want to go with us? And I was like, sure. So we were staying with a family there, and the husband of that family said, if you want to travel the world, get your master's in teaching English as a second language. And so both my friend and I ended up doing that. And I had explored graduate school, but I wasn't quite sure what career I wanted to commit to. And I really didn't want to go tens of thousands of dollars into debt for something I wasn't sure about. Yeah. And so another friend had told me, this is like the second best life advice. She said, don't pay for your own graduate school, make somebody else pay for it. And I didn't know what it meant at the time, but this man in Jordan, his name was Paul. Paul said, there's fellowships or other programs available specifically in this area. He worked at a university for many years. He said they'll pay for it. And so he had been in Egypt at the American University in Cairo. And he said they have this fellowship program. You teach in the academic English preparation program. They pay for your tuition and a monthly stipend and your plane ticket home. So I thought, okay, all I have to come up with is a one-way ticket. So I applied. And didn't think I'd get it because his daughter, who grew up in Egypt, was also applying. And but there was 12 slots, and we both got it. And I actually met my husband when I came home from that trip to Jordan. And our first conversation was me telling him about this trip I just took. And so I applied. In the meantime, April, Jeff and I started dating. And like 2 weeks later, I was notified that I was awarded the fellowship. And so I called him up and I was like, I promised God that I would go to graduate school if he paid for it. And maybe I should have applied to somewhere closer to home. But at the end of August, I will be going to Egypt. Do you still want to date? And he said, well, that's a ways away. Let's just see what happens. And clearly it worked out. We've been married 18 years now.
Wow.
So that was a big one. And we got married halfway through that program, and he quit his job and came with me to Egypt for the second year of grad school. And that was really good for us relationally, like just such a foundational part of who I am. And he got to have his own experience there.
And didn't he say something sweet like, you're my dream? I have what is it that he said to you? I just love to hear those things.
He says this all the time. He said, all I ever wanted to be when I was a kid was a dad. Aww. And he has his own history with relationships, and he just thought he was never going to get to do that. And then he met me, and he's like, he said, what is this? You're the answer to my prayers. Like I'm living my dream. What more do I need? We have 4 kids. I never thought I'd have 4 kids, but
I didn't think I was going to have 5. Yeah. I thought I was going to have 2.
Yeah, I thought 3 was my thought.
Yeah.
So, so when he was praying about our relationship, like when I was gone that first year in Egypt, he says, there's like one time in life where the Lord gave him a 5-year plan, and this is it. He said the Lord told him propose over Christmas break when I was coming home. Quit your job, marry Sarah, go with her to Egypt, and then spend 2 years in preparation for full-time service.
Wow.
And we didn't know what full-time service meant. Did it mean just continuing to do what I had been doing in the Portland area? He was an engineer. And so had a good salary, good job. Maybe we just live simply, give generously, and serve our neighbors. Maybe it means going cross-cultural. And so when we came home from Egypt, I was 4 months pregnant, and he got his job back, and we had a new car, and we were like ready to settle. The things you crave when you're out of the country. I was like, give me Taco Bell. I don't even like Taco Bell that much, but like in my head, this was the thing I missed.
Sure. That's funny.
So we went through about a year, new baby, settling in. And then we remembered what the Lord had told him. And we're like, oh, a year has passed. Maybe we should do something about this. So I went back to a group that I had been part of, and we heard a story from a friend who had been serving in Tajikistan. And that just prompted us to be like, okay, we need to do something. And so we had other friends that I had known for a long time. We had known them who were serving in another organization out of Texas. And so I went with our 9-month-old son to an event that this organization was holding. I didn't realize it was a recruitment event until I got there.
Wow.
My husband didn't have any vacation time because, again, he just restarted his job. And so before I went, our pastor said, don't sign anything. And so my husband spent that week praying through John Piper's Don't Waste Your Life. And I spent that week with a 9-month-old and feeling like, okay, we need to go. Like, where do I sign? It's really good.
Wow.
And I came home and we were sharing about our weeks, and he had been leaning towards, maybe I just need to stay in the US. I have a mom and sister that I would like to be available to care for, just some other things. And then I told him some of the stories I had heard and how the need in cross-cultural work, it's not money as much as it is people. And that there are people waiting in places around the world for the help that Christians are willing and able to give. And so once he heard that, he said, yeah, we have to go. And I said, yeah, we do. And now we've been overseas 12 years now. We're back and we're like, yeah, we need people. we always need money, right? Let's not minimize them. That's what keeps us there. But we can't have more of an impact without people. And that's really, that's where we are. So it took some time. There were bumps in the road, discerning which organization to choose, working through those things.
Because you didn't know at the time, did you, like, exactly what you were going to do? You just just heard about the need and was just open to go, right?
Yeah. My husband likes to say we're the why not missionaries.
Yeah.
He's an engineer. I had, teaching English and office work experience, not like one time, one of our international pastors asked my husband to preach when he was on a Sunday that needed a speaker. And my husband was like, you don't want me to. I can do calculus. I cannot preach.
That's so funny.
So, we're more administratively minded. And that's eventually what we were recruited to do. And so we joined an organization, went cross-culturally. And, those friends that I was visiting in Dallas, they were serving in this country. And so we thought, the Lord is so gracious because people are like, where are you going? Where are you called to? And I was like, I don't know that I'm called to any specific place, but I know I don't want malaria pills or to haul my own water. I don't want to learn Russian still. This is a theme in my life.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So we got to come back to that.
Yeah, we will. And then I wanted to be among Muslims. And we had done time in the Middle East and didn't feel like that was the right fit for our family. And so our friends were serving in this country that's near Central Asia. And we were like, yeah, that's it. Let's go there. Never been there before. And we arrived and it was a shock. I had 3 kids at that point. We had done a stint in Canada for some training and then off to the Central Asia area. So that's how we ended up there.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, take me into the time you arrive at this country. Mm-hmm. It's not America. What is that like?
It's also not Egypt. Some of the people we had talked to were like, oh, it's like Egypt. And we're like, no, it's not really.
Where?
Well, it's a post-Soviet republic. And so Russian language is very common, especially for people my age and older. Like when the Soviet Union fell, I was 11 years old. So you could see like a lot of people have childhood associations with the Soviet Union. It was really ugly. A lot of concrete. Although our area is not a poor country, and so they've tried to shed the Soviet appearance, and so they've put, like, in the meantime, even since the time we first arrived, they've put a lot of nice facades on these 5-story concrete apartment blocks. They've so many international awards for architecture, for new construction. So it really is a beautiful city, but it's not Oregon.
It's not green.
No. Mm-mm. And parts of it are, but the city where we live is not.
Mm-hmm. I would just think for anybody, no matter where you're going, and maybe people who are more international, where the countries are like closer together, they blend in and out of countries easier. But I feel like Americans were so American. And we just, but for anybody going from one country to the other, it's a culture shock because you know your way. And so going over there, that just had to be a culture. You're a mom of 3. Now you got to I would think the brain automatically goes to what we do in America. Like you go to the store, you get this, or you go to the doctor like that, or this is what you do at your home and how you go grocery shopping and all those things. Was that similar, or is that really different where you're like, oh yeah, we don't do that here?
That, I think I had lived cross culturally enough that I kind of understood it's going to be different.
Yeah.
I was not emotionally prepared for not having a dishwasher or a clothes dryer. So we ended up hiring house help pretty quickly on. And okay, my husband, the engineer, because I was feeling guilty for how many hours we were hiring somebody. And he's like, Sarah, how much does it cost for you to be here? And how much does it cost to have someone? At the time, it was like $3 an hour. And he was like, you don't need to be hanging up laundry. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I really don't need to be hanging up laundry.
When you say it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was hard at first. Also, our living situation was not ideal. We were in a shared courtyard with a local family that didn't speak any English.
Oh, wow.
And it was their house that they built, and they didn't want anybody else in to fix or clean or anything. So there was some other tensions that didn't need to be there, but we didn't know because we were ignorant.
Yeah.
Honestly, the bigger culture shock was going from American corporate world to nonprofit. Like that was hard, and it continues even now to be frustrating at times, just because, I mean, my husband spent 10 years as a consulting engineer, and I did, all the office-y things and teaching.
Yeah.
This is not the way. This is so funny. What we're used to is what should be, right? This isn't the way things should be done.
Yeah.
And we've been in it long enough now that we're like, we could see the reasons why things are the way they are, but also the frustration that people from different domains experience when they transfer.
Yeah. So you get there, and do you immediately know what you're going to be doing? Or was that you just had to get there?
Yeah, they gave us time for language learning, which was super good. I had an in-home tutor for about 10 months, and that was really the foundation of my language skills. It's a common story. You talk about how your story is common. This is common in cross-cultural work. We need people. You're here. You're new. You have skills. Even though we told you get so long for language learning, we really have this need in the work. So can you do this?
Yeah.
And so my poor husband's language learning time got cut. His story is just really terrible because it's just bits and pieces everywhere. So we got pulled into the office work too soon. And there was just a lot of unresolved conflict in that group that we weren't just so naive, didn't know about. There was also 14 different cultures in that office.
Oh, wow.
And
talk about melting pot.
No, it's like a fight ring. Like it was a tough work environment. But we persevered, and in time that organization restructured. And so administrative roles were no longer needed in that country. And so we were faced with the choice of, do we stay with this organization and change countries, or do we change organizations? And so we really felt the Lord say, you're not done here yet. So we changed, and it was just clearly the Lord led us to our current organization, and that was good. Part of the time working in that office environment, we saw how professional development among nationals happens, and then how there's a glass ceiling where they can't go past in these foreign-owned, Christ-centered businesses because in order to be in that country, it's a creative access place. And so in order to be there, you have to have a work permit or be a director of a company. And so the foreigners have the top jobs. And so if you're a talented professional and you want to continue to grow in your profession, which is reasonable, you have to change. You have to leave. And so that we didn't feel good about that. We thought there has to be a better way to treat talented national people. So that we ended up shifting towards a more business oriented project with our new organization.
Gotcha.
But the day after we presented our plan to the executive team, the country, and it was June of 2020, so that was poor time. And COVID lockdowns in our country meant you were not allowed to leave your house unless you sent a text to the government and got a permission response. And so that was valid for up to, at times, 2 or 3 hours, depending on when.
And people here were angry that we had to wear a mask. You had to send a text to the government.
One time, so people started to game the system because at first the reply was like instantaneous. So what people would do is they wouldn't send the text and they would go out, and then if there was a checkpoint or police around, they would quickly send the text and be like, see. So I started doing that. But then the government wised up to this and they had a delayed response. So I'm in the car just on the main road near our house, and they like literally had checkpoints where they would stop traffic and the police would check. And I see one coming up, and I sent the text message, and then I just left. I was like, okay, they'll come back in, a few minutes. I'm sitting there watching my phone. It's my turn.
Oh my goodness.
I was like,
As you see the police.
As I'm showing the policeman my phone, the approval comes through, and I was like, oh, made it.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what the punishment would have been, probably just a fine, but
wow.
not fun. So So the project, the business-oriented project that we tried to start between COVID, we pivoted towards online things. And then September that year, our country went to war and turned off the internet. So we're like, well, okay, that doesn't work. And also had martial law, so you had to be in your home by 9 p.m. So that means if you want to do anything after work, if people get off work at 6, you can't do, and you want to do like classes or meetings after work, you just can't. I mean, people have to go grocery shopping and do their own life. And then our partners got pregnant with their first baby, and we just couldn't keep going. Part of that plan was an English language business because of my background and our partner's background. And we were trying to keep this business afloat. This is 2021 in the fall, and trying to find students from anywhere. And so our international church had a large refugee population, mostly from Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we were offering a good discount to refugees who wanted to learn English to come to our business. And so I was doing an intake assessment for a family with 4 kids, ages 11 to 16. And I started with the oldest, and she had great English, and worked my way down. And I got to the 11-year-old boy, and I realized pretty quickly that he is, if not completely illiterate, awfully close. Like, I don't know that he had ever been to school. And I went home and I asked my husband, I said, what are we doing? Like this, we're struggling to keep this business afloat, losing money to help middle-class people learn English so they can leave.
Yeah.
During that time, I did share the gospel quite a bit because I had a lot of one-on-one students, like specific types of test preparation. So it was a great experience relationally, but just as a project, it just wasn't working. And so the next few months, we actually had become acquainted with a local pastor who also had a heart for business development within the church. And so we were able to introduce him to our supervisor and kind of pass that type of project off to that pastor who could do it much better anyway than we could. And so they're doing something now, and it's good. I don't know the details. We have to stay out of that because we don't want to be perceived of as like still being involved. The pastor really needs to be on his own.
Yep.
But this boy, the family were asylum seekers from Pakistan, and they hadn't been approved. Their case got lost during COVID, and so they had a piece of paper that said, "You have a case. It's in process. We'll call you." And of course, they never got a call. They did consult with a lawyer who said, well, if you pursue this, you'll be deported. So you're here. And we were like, well, you don't really have permission to be here. I mean, kind of, sort of, but the law here isn't going to buy that. You don't have permission to go to school or to work or to sign any contracts, like none of the rights of a refugee. And so they were just stuck, like hadn't been to school in 4 years. So it took time. My husband says, oh, then we need to start a school. I said, no, that's a lot of work. Not. But we had some downtime where the failure of that first project, I call it a failure. It really was just the Lord saying, no, this is what I use this for, and we're going to shut it down now, pass it off to other people.
Yeah.
But it felt like a personal failure. Like we weren't able to do it. And so I was just kind of down for a few months, just kind of re-embracing the mom role. I was like, I know how to be a mom and I'm good at it and I'm successful. I needed something I could feel good about. But then I was talking with a friend of mine in May of 2022. And she was a former refugee who had lived with us for, over a year. And she became like a third sister for me. She's a really special part of our family.
Wow.
She had migrated to Canada, but I was on the phone with her and talking about this thing around refugees and education. And in one breath, she says, oh my gosh, Sarah, you have to do this. It's going to be so hard. I was like, oh.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Like, she was like, this is so needed. I thought, okay. And so I thought, okay, let's do it. And my husband was on the phone with his mom, who he was just sharing with her kind of these things floating around. And she said, she was like, I'm more excited about this than anything you guys have ever done before. And she's like our number one fan, right? So he came into the kitchen where I was and I said, let's do it. Let's start a school. And he was like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like yesterday. I was like, no.
Wow.
And even then, I wasn't convinced that we needed to do something, because I thought surely since COVID, there's been online resources for this. And so I went online and I looked really hard for and did research about refugees and education. And surely there's some kind of online system for refugees to learn. And there's just not. There might be now. And there were things that looked promising, but they were so contextualized to a certain area or a certain school, or it was a combined in-person. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And so I was like, okay, let's start our school. And our organization was so gentle with us. We said, can we just experiment? Like, we don't need project funds. We just want to just put some of our own money, it wasn't a lot, just into buying some software, and let's just experiment. So for over a year, we just tried different things. I have a degree in teaching English, but I'm not really like an educator, like a K-12 or an administrator, things like that. I don't have experience working in a school. So, and my husband is an engineer. Like, we are not professional educators, or weren't. We are now.
Yeah.
So it was just,
you just simply saw the need and we're like, we got to do something.
Yeah. And, I don't know, some people have different opinions on the Enneagram, but I'm a 1. And so I'm like the champion, let's change the world. I couldn't.
That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm hearing your story, I'm like, yeah, you sure are.
I couldn't say no to these kids. I have a son who's the same age as that boy who was illiterate. And my son was reading Harry Potter, and Lord of the Rings. And, I just thought, how can this exist in the world? And I was actually just looking up more statistics. In Pakistan, there's over 25 million unschooled children today.
Oh, wow.
53% of refugee children are not in school. And it even goes lower once you get to secondary. Like 24% of refugee children are enrolled in secondary education.
Wow.
And so we just started with the people we knew around us.
And this first family, though, they weren't even refugees. They couldn't even get
nothing. So we were that summer, after that May moment, this same family, I had the mom and the oldest who was a daughter. She was 16, maybe 17 by then, I don't know. They came over to our house and we said, we don't know if we can, but if we were to do something that would help people like you get an education, would you be interested? And we had to sit there and wait while she broke down in tears. This girl was so desperate for an education. And even now, she is one of our hardest charging students. She was the one who was like, Miss Sarah, can we start yet? Miss Sarah, can we start yet? I'm like, no, we can't. I don't have anything for you yet. But really persevered with us. They were our test case on like everything. They've done so many things to help us learn and grow. And yeah.
Wow. So you started with those 4.
And then a couple other refugee families that we knew through church. And we ended up, there's also one family. So we had these 2 Afghan families that we knew just as friends. And we said, would you be interested in having your kids study with us? And they were. Their kids are, we call it dual enrolled, because they are official UN refugees. And in order to keep that status, their kids have to go to school.
Gotcha.
But the school system, it could be a good experience, but for many it's very abusive, both from the teachers and administrators and the other students and families. It really depends on the teacher. Like one of the students had a great teacher and had a great experience, but others, in most cases, they just get ignored and passed along. And sometimes it's not good at all. So, 75% of refugees they flee to what's close to them. So it's middle or low economic status countries that don't have the resources to help students like this, who don't know the language, don't know the culture, have missing school years. So they just get put in the school system because they need to be, but they don't really learn, even in the best case scenario with a good teacher and nice classmates, because of those other issues, right? You can't learn when you don't understand the language.
Well, yeah, and not only that, I remember, I don't know, last couple of years, my daughter was reading a book. I forget the name of the book, my 25-year-old daughter. And it was all about teens. But, and it was one of the things she was reading and told me was the number one thing that teens, what is it? The number one thing teens want to know, or what they look for in, I don't know, if who they engage with or what they belong to, is they want to know that they belong. And so I always try to put myself in other people's shoes. Like, what would life be like in your shoes, having to do this, to be presented with a family that you can see the need and like, I don't know what to do, but we'll figure it out. And then you put yourself in these the parents who flee for a better life or just safety for their kids. And then they go off to school where kids want to belong. We all want to belong, but children want to belong. And to be surrounded, I think one of the saddest things for a human is to be around people and yet feel so alone. Yeah. And so for these kids they're outcasts from their country, they're outcasts when they go to a new country, they're outcasts from, they don't belong anywhere. And so what that does to the soul is just like, wow.
So we realized very quickly that our school has to be more than just an education, more than facts and reading and math and whatnot. We ended up reaching out to a formal education organization that helped us a lot with the school stuff. Yeah. But so our school is a joint project between our primary organization and our secondary one. But both organizations have really helped us with understanding trauma and how it impacts the brain and how it impacts learning. And we've done our own research on a lot of things. And the number one thing is making a safe space. Yeah. Like, you can't learn.
That's everything.
And so we have so our school is, we call it a hybrid school, but it's not hybrid by most Western definitions. Most of the learning is online with a flip model. So we use software where the kids learn the stuff. And then we meet online to do reteaching or tutoring. And then we try to have, where we are located, we try to have in-person things. Like we did an art class that was really fun and some other things. But we have a daily online homeroom class. And we do a devotion. We do a mindfulness activity. We do study skills, but like for our type of school. Like, how do you know what you need to do? How do you ask for help? What do you do when your brain is foggy? What do you do when you're at your public school and you feel certain ways? Like, we just have a lot of things like that. And so just different things. Like one girl was like, what do I do at school? And I was like, well, can you go to the bathroom? And she said, yes. I said, is the water cold? Oh, yes, it's freezing. I said, put it on your wrists. Just hold your wrists under the cold water for 30 seconds. And it, like, I don't understand it because I'm not a therapist or whatever, but it like resets your body. And so it helps your brain clear. So we've learned a lot about polyvagal stuff and other things. Yeah. So it's been really interesting. And so we started with these 2 Afghan families and the 1 Pakistani family. And the 2 Afghans came to us and they said, we have this friend and it would be really good if she could join the school too, her 2 kids. And we were like, well, we just really want to get the model down with a small group, like, start small, fail small kind of thing. But then they came back a week later and they're like, we're all in a Bible study together and it's really awkward for us if 2 of us are involved and this one isn't. So we said, okay, sure. And they have 2 kids. One of them was an 11-year-old girl. And we were working with her. We do these intake tests and her math scores were all over. And so my husband sat with her a long time and tried to figure out what is going on. And he was even looking into like math learning disabilities. And he eventually figured out that she couldn't count. Like she could count until 20 reliably, 100 was hit and miss. And he tried in 3 languages. But she couldn't count, had no concept of the base 10 numbering system. And so he worked with her like every day for a year. And we had an ice cream social at the end of that first year with all the parents and families. And the dad came up to my husband and said, I'm not worried about my son. He'll be fine. But how's my daughter? Because he's a sweet dad. And Jeff said, I don't know. She's doing better, but I don't know how it'll turn out. So that was last summer. I don't remember.
Yeah.
That was, last summer. And this end of year, she tested at 6th grade level.
Wow.
And, counting, that's kindergarten. She just put in the work. And I think what happened is she's still getting instruction at her in-person school, right? So I think what happened is once she had that foundation of what to do, it like opened her up so that she could experience learning in her public school. Yeah. So it was really encouraging to see that. And just the heart that these parents have. That's my husband. He's like, the kids are important. He's like, I just feel for the parents.
Yeah, because most parents, if they're healthy, want the best for their children. And they want their kids to go above and beyond what they ever did. And I would feel the same way. So
we ended up through these families. I don't know if many people remember. We do because we were there. But Pakistan and Afghanistan, they kind of have a not great relationship. And at one point, Pakistan said, we're going to deport, it was like 2.1 million Afghans back to Afghanistan. Refugees who've been there, some since like the 70s.
Wow.
Or maybe it was more than that. It was a lot of people. And so we asked our Afghan friends, do you know anybody that, maybe they need help? And they said, no, they don't. They're okay. Yeah, we know people, but they're okay. But we have family in Afghanistan. Could they join? And so we were like, well, okay. So we ended up with students in Afghanistan, and one girl in particular, you listened to her speech, but one of the first questions, we always tell people we are Christian. The curriculum we have happens to be Christian, not because we want it. Well, we did want it, but mostly it was accessible to us and we could use it. But the school is not Christian. And you don't have to be Christian to come, and there's no expectation that you will change. Like, it's just, this is a need. And so we have that conversation with every family. And so this family in Afghanistan said, yes, And what happened is there was 5 brothers, and the oldest got an education, and so did his kids, like university level. And the younger ones didn't. And this is actually normal. All the resources usually go to the oldest son. And they saw how much better his life was and his children's life. And they said, yes, an education is important, even for my daughters. And so in 2022, the Taliban, was it 22? Yeah, I think so. I might have my dates wrong. They stopped school for girls past 6th grade. And so the speech that our student wrote was called "The Last Day We Thought Was Temporary." And she was in 7th grade on the day they turned in their books and went home. And one of the first questions in her Bible course was, how do you know God is real? And she said, I know God is real because I prayed for a year to be able to study, and now I'm studying again online. And one of these 2 families who we were in our city, who we asked, do you know anybody who needs education in Afghanistan? One of them said to me, she said, our family know that we're Christian and they've heard the gospel many times, but this shows them the love of Jesus.
Wow.
And that's just really encouraging, because that's why we do it. So many people are like, oh, all Americans are so nice. Americans are nice. They have this view of Americans. And then you talk with them and you realize all the Americans they know are missionaries.
Oh.
And you're like, well, not all Americans.
Yeah.
So for our students to see through the niceness, to really see that it's God's love, is really important to us. And we tell them, we say, we do this because God told us to, and he loves you. On our own, we don't have this ability to love you like this. And so
that just has to be so fulfilling. Like, and it's not to diminish helping somebody. Somebody needs help, go help them. And your story is one. See the need, fill it. I mean, that really is, if you sum up our coffee, it was your entire story. It was like, oh yeah, and then this family had a need, so we filled it, this need. And it was just, that has to be so fulfilling. So I listened to that. Tears stream, like, what bravery. We don't know that kind of life. So to step into this girl's shoes, she's how old?
17.
So a 17-year-old girl created this, it had to be a speech for the end of the year before they turned everything in.
It was just an 8th grade language arts assignment.
Yeah.
It caught me by surprise when she sent me the text. I was like, oh, this is really touching and powerful.
Just as a girl, they're not allowed to be educated, and all of that is, we don't know that kind of life, and yet just providing her with the opportunity to learn it's really what you've given kids, I think, and families, is hope. Because what I hear in all the stories, and you said it during the coffee too, was they had such desperation.
Yeah. One thing that she said in her speech is, she asks the question, what kind of society requires girls to be silent to survive? And my husband and I have thought about that, and we thought, this is who we're serving. Those who kind of shrink into themselves and kind of try to fly under the radar to survive, whether they are refugees, or girls in Afghanistan, or we now have students in Pakistan, because some of our students were deported. That family of 4 kids, they were deported. And we told them, take your computers and come back to school. And they all did. And another family was in a similar situation. And so I think being seen is really, really important. So much of what we do, we can't fix. Yeah. And we tell the students, you may not ask for money. We will not help with getting a job. We will not help with immigration. We do education. That's our thing.
Yeah.
But one of our students, actually, who ended up having to leave and go back to Pakistan, he had muscular dystrophy, and he ended up passing away. And one of our other students, when I shared it with them, she wrote a poem, and his mom like hand wrote it out on poster board and put it up in front of the podium at his funeral service. And she sent me a picture. And on the top of it, it says, his friend wrote this. And this boy, who was a shut-in because he was wheelchair bound and they were poor, was seen and he was known. And he brought a lot of joy to our school for the time he was there. But I think that's the gift. And even this girl's speech where she says, boys can make mistakes, but girls are punished for them. And she sees it around her, and she says, sometimes resistance is just enduring, is keeping going. And I thought, yeah. And so when we see people and acknowledge them that they are in God's image, they are just as valuable as our own kids. Like, that was the thing that struck me in that very first meeting with that 11-year-old, is I thought, this could be my child. He's funny. He likes anime. He likes video games. Like, he's an 11-year-old boy, right? Yeah. And yet, just because of the circumstances, he's in this situation. I was talking with that girl in Afghanistan. You know, we talk about the homeroom where we do mindfulness activities. We were talking about emotions, and she said, well, what do you do if you don't feel any emotions? And I said, well, let's talk about that later. And so we did. And I basically, like, in my own life, I've had times where I'm emotionally numb, and our care department, I'll meet with them. They're like, yeah, this is a problem. You're close to burnout. So they, walking through how to not burn out. And so I just shared some of those things with her that she could do in her house. Things like put your feet on the bare earth, right? That has a thing. Or close your eyes and visualize yourself in a place that's relaxing and refreshing, like the beach or the forest or wherever. So I shared some of those things with her. And at the end, I told her, I said, it's not an accident that you were born a girl. It's not an accident that you were born in Afghanistan and that you have your family. God has a plan for you. This is not an accident. And just this summer, she's another one of those students that just keeps going and pushing us. I was catching up on grading some of her things, and she did a unit in language arts about propaganda and critical reading. And the question prompt was, write one thing that you've heard or read that is true. And she wrote, God has a plan for me. I was like, wow. Oh, she got it. So yeah, it's seeing people and just sitting with them and hearing their story just means so much for both of us, really. But yeah.
What still needs to be done over there? Because you've been doing this school for how long now?
3 years now.
3 years. Wow. So what are some of the things that, you've learned some things. Where's the need today?
People. We need people. When I tell people, come join us, they're like, oh, I could never do that. I never thought I could sell my house and my car and pick up my family. But what is God telling you to do? Even if it's scary, do that. Like, before we left, we were in Tigard, had a great house, great life, great everything. I was like literally super close to my mom's house. And we really felt the Lord say, I will bless you if you go, and I will bless you if you stay. And so, the Lord is concerned with our hearts. But I thought, I kind of can guess my life if I stay here. It will be a blessing. There will be lots of good things, I kind of can know what's going to happen, generally.
Sure.
But if I don't go, then I don't know what I'm missing out on. Like, there's experiences that I will never have that I will miss. Like, I won't even know to miss them. And now that we've done it, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't trade this for anything. And I feel like when God puts something on your heart, whether it's helping in your neighborhood or your neighbors or the homeless or whatever it is, do it. Like, I love people who do what God tells them to do, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, usually it doesn't. And there's like, and it's usually not something that's even in your natural gifting or strength.
Yeah.
That's what I found.
So yeah, it's really fun. So, if people feel the call to go cross culturally, explore it. It's never like one day you decide and the next day you leave. It's a process. So just trust the process, and if
So
God's
you
calling you there,
say,
it'll be confirmed.
yeah. So you say that you need people to do what? Like,
To join us on the field or to volunteer from here. We had tutors this last year. We tried out some online tutors. Two of them were based out of the Northwest, and one of them happened to be a Scottish lady who lived in our city.
wow.
And they just watch the kids do the apps and answer questions. It's not a complicated thing. But one girl, the girl in Pakistan who cried on our couch, we were talking with her a few weeks ago, and she's like, we asked her, how's the tutoring going? She has a math tutor. And she said, it's really good because basically it's positive pressure to do the work. It's accountability. She said, I know
Yeah.
she's going to ask me about it. And this girl, her life this last year, they were deported. After a time in detention, they were deported. And then her father passed away. And then she got a full-time job to support the family in a call center. She assured me it's not a scam center. And then and she's figuring out, how do I keep doing school while I'm working full time? So, and the tutor is a positive reinforcement to keep doing that. So, and there's just a variety of things we need help with that could be done from here, but also people on the ground, whether short term, long term, whatever, midterm, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're back here for how long?
Until third week in August, and then we'll go back.
Are you itching to go back?
Oh gosh.
I would think that I would be so torn because you get to see your family and stuff here, but then they become like your family there, right? And the kids who are there, and
it's really hard to have two lives. It's really what it feels like. It's so hard. At first we thought, well, maybe we could just run the school from America. Why not? It has been so hard to connect with our students over the summer, and we cut it off, right? We're like, we're not doing school during the summer. We have other things we need to do. But there are a few students we need to connect with, and we're trying to onboard new students so they're ready in the fall. And just the time difference has been so hard.
What's it's gotta be like 10?
It's 11 to 13 and a half hour time difference from where we are here in Oregon.
Wow.
So it's like, I don't really want to work a graveyard shift online. Like, that sounds like misery, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we also need donors. I mean, I work for a nonprofit, and that's always a need. Always a need. So even though the Lord called us to be the ones who go, we thought maybe we'll just give generously. God told us, nope, you can go. So we do. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting this time, our whole career has been fundraising. It's part of it. It's just part of the package. Yeah. It's interesting to see the ebbs and flows of giving over the years and over the kind of trends. It seems like people are more focused now locally. There's a lot of local needs, and that's, like I said, if God's calling you to do that, then do it. We've had one partner who said, you guys are doing great work, but I just can't ignore the needs in my neighborhood anymore. So I need to stop giving. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that, because she was doing what the Lord told her to do.
Yeah.
But the big international aid organizations, we're not the size that they want. And we're not, the bureaucracy that exists has failed these kids, these millions and millions of kids. And so, we're friends with an ambassador from our international church, and I was talking with him about this, and he was like, well, this is the solution. Of course, coming from a government, he's looking at governmental level solutions. And I'm like, that's already failing them. So we're just trying to find a new path for education, and it is hard to fund it.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're always in need of help. Well, and I would think, I mean, and you never run out of children because they're ones go off and new ones come in, because you started with a family of 4 and you're up to how many kids
Well,
now?
we started with, I don't know, about 15 maybe. This last year we had 30.
Wow.
But again, like one family, they got sponsored and immigrated to Canada. So we continue to be in touch with them and help them as they want help. But they're mostly in the new system now. There's a lot of resources for settled refugees in the developed world. There just are. For families in displacement who have fled their country but aren't yet settled permanently, that time period is on average 10 to 21 years. And
Oh my word.
yeah, and there's not a lot of resources for them.
So they basically because they don't fall into any one slot in life. How do they?
They're waiting for settlement. That
Waiting
time of
for
displacement is waiting. It's like living in limbo, and it's hard. It's really hard.
So a family leaves a country. This is getting probably very ignorant American of me, but I don't live in this world.
I learned too.
Because you hear about it, and you hear they leave and they go somewhere, and if there's help, there's help, and you don't think much more about it because it's not in our daily world necessarily. They are around us. I don't want to ignore that. I just don't know it as far as what they go through in a daily life. But for the ones who they don't get the settlement, they have to wait 10 to 21 years. These groups of people, and there's millions of them, you said. And it's people like you who will take the time to then educate them because they're human. Yeah. So it needs just like we do.
Yeah. So education happens through camps. Like there are refugee camps in certain places. I think the biggest one is in, oh goodness, I just read this, in Africa. I don't remember exactly where. Congo, maybe. Or maybe it was Uganda. I don't remember. The camps usually have informal survival education. So basic numeracy, basic literacy, and like healthcare, that kind of thing. And the need is overwhelming. Like I've talked with people who serve in camps in Greece, and it is overwhelming, and secondary trauma is a real thing. And there's that. Other refugees who don't go to a camp, like in our context, they're given an ID card from the UN, and they have permission to be in the country, and they have permission for the kids to go to school, but they don't have permission. Technically, they have permission to work, but nobody knows how to hire them because they don't have normal paperwork. So they usually work, what do you call it, in the informal economy. And they can't sign contracts or access the banking system. And so even their cell phones, it's usually a friend. It's under a friend's name, the SIM card contract. So it's really hard. And people do it oftentimes, hopefully it's temporary, like there's a war or there's a natural disaster and people leave and then they go back, right? That's what should happen in an ideal world.
Yeah.
But for many, they can't go back. And unfortunately, I think we do have asylum seekers in the U.S. Unfortunately, the system is abused by people who aren't really asylum seekers. They just want a better life, and the normal paths of migration are really hard, or they don't qualify, right? Yeah. Most countries want qualified workers and people of wealth to come. They don't want, a gardener to come get a work permit. So, and we see it in our context too. We heard about pastors who would be bribed to give baptism certificates. Did I freeze up there?
Yeah, just for a split second, but you're okay now.
We've heard stories of bribery for like documentation that you are Christian when they're really not. Like it happens.
Why would they need that? And why would they need that?
So you can get a religious asylum. Okay. So, and it's just really unfortunate that that abuse happens because the people who really need the help end up not getting it. Like it
Yeah.
ruins for everybody.
Yeah.
So it happens. Even with some of our families, I'm like, not sure how much of this is true. But the reality is they're still in that position. And that's between them and God.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
And
not
they
going
still need help learning how
still-
to, they need education like anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah. How do you balance that as one who serves and yet the mom, the leader? How do you balance it all?
We're still learning. Last summer, I happened to be home just for a week because of some conferences. And I was at my home church, and I happened to sit next to a gentleman, and I asked him, what do you do for a living? Just making small talk. And he coached disabled children's sports.
Oh, cool.
And so I asked him about this boy I had recently met with muscular dystrophy. And my question was, should I encourage one of my kids who's the same age to develop a friendship? Or should I just kind of let him keep his distance? And there was a lot of tears on my part. And I think even he got emotional, but he said it's worth it. And so encouraging my oldest to make friends with a boy whose life I knew was going to be short, I didn't realize how short. And watching my kids struggle through their things, through their relationships. We've learned a lot in the last couple years about third culture kids and raising kids outside their home culture and the different ways they deal with trauma and grief. And there's actually a lot of crossover to the students we have, but just for our own kids and their own sake. We're advocates of therapy. About last fall, one of our kids was really experiencing anxiety, like to the point that we thought, do we have to leave because of him? Like we were at the end of our ropes. We couldn't help him cope with the anxiety anymore.
Yeah.
And we reached out. We happened to have already scheduled one of the care department people come out to do like a mental health education with our students. And she met with each of our kids. And she said, they're fine. It's normal third culture missionary kid issues. But she started meeting with our oldest weekly online. And after the first meeting, he was like a different kid.
Wow.
And she just knew how to help him process all that grief that he had experienced that didn't have a way out. We're still learning how to not live from crisis to crisis. It's really not a healthy way to be.
Sure.
So much of it is external, right? Like we couldn't help the war. We couldn't help COVID. We couldn't help, last year, our residency, my work permit got canceled unexpectedly. And
oh, wow.
It just throws everything into chaos because are we packing to leave? If we leave, where are we going? Are we reapplying? Like just a lot of chaos, and that impacts our kids, and it's really hard on them too. But they have a love for our adopted country, and they're glad.
Because three were born in America, and one was born there.
2 were born in America, 1 in Canada, and then 1 over there.
Okay. Are they ready to go back? Because I would think for, especially the younger ones, that's more like home, right?
Yeah, we have pet rabbits, and they all miss the pet rabbits. We just bought a house that we're still remodeling, and all of us are ready to move into our house. I don't know if it'll be ready when we go back, but we're looking forward to that. We've been in a small house with 1 bathroom for 6 of us, and now almost
that's a lot.
Soon to be 3 teenagers. So
that's fun.
Yeah, that's fun. There's very few secrets in our home.
Yeah.
So, we're torn. I mean,
yeah.
My mother-in-law recently moved near my parents, so all of our family, except for a couple, are like right in one area. Um, yeah.
So it's
hard.
not always just, this is a great life over here internationally. It's tough.
Yeah. But, we were talking with some friends of ours at our home church, and
Yeah.
their life has also been very, very tough the last 2 years. And so I think that's a lie we tell ourselves, is we should be happy.
Absolutely.
And it's like, where did that expectation come from? Life is hard, and I don't know what I would do without the peace of God and the freedom from fear and anxiety that comes with that.
Yeah.
I think no matter where I live, it would be hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And life throws some hard punches for sure. The one thing I wanted to, I have two questions before we wrap up. One is, why don't you want to learn Russian? What is your, I just got to ask, because it's like the fourth time I've heard that now. And I'm like, I wonder why.
When I was younger, I was super intimidated by it. I don't know why. It's just something.
And you know what's so funny? Our family is Polish, but I've always one of my I have one dream, but I've always had this like internal. I know one of the things as a kid that I always wanted to do was someday I want to go to Russia and hold the babies that were left untouched in cribs. You used to hear that when we were kids, is that they're not really touched. They're just left. They have failure to thrive. And my heart is so, I just want to go hold them. And I've always had a heart for Russia. I don't know why. I don't know why. Well, long story short, I'm now in my 40s, and my grandmother has, since passed, and I was super close with her. Don't really know my dad's side of the family, but my grandmother in particular, we were always told she's Polish, from Poland, whatever. And then I've kept in touch with one of her nieces that came to visit. And her and I have gone back and forth because I have this deep desire to know, tell me about like her. And we only know her from coming to America. We only know some of the stories. Come to find out, she's actually Belarusian. And she's like, I know your grandmother always told you were Polish, but she went to a Polish school. She did, all these different things, but she's actually Belarusian. It was like, wow, I wonder if that's why I have such a love, or this just my roots are there. And I don't know why. I don't know Russian. I don't speak it. I've never been, but it's just interesting. So every time you say something, I just don't want to learn Russian. I'm like, I got to ask why.
I've actually come to really appreciate Russians and the Russian culture. It's not as intimidating to me now. If I had to learn it, I'm like, okay, I could learn this language. My husband had to learn it. And he jokes like, the first 80% of it is beautiful, structured, predictable. And then it's like, whoever made the language drank too much vodka. And then it just
that makes sense.
But I can understand it, like just certain phrases that I need to use. And I can tell in movies when the Russian villain has a really bad accent. I'm like, that's not.
Oh, I could listen to that accent all day long. I do love it. The other question I want to ask you as we wrap up is, you had mentioned in our coffee that when you go where you live over there in the other country, hospitality it's all about hospitality.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? I don't know why, but it has almost a sacred place in the culture. And I really think it's that whole region. I think it broke up for a moment. Okay. I know when I spent time in the Middle East, it's also a highly valued thing. And I think it comes from like way back in the day when you're traveling. It's almost like people were required to host you for up to 3 days. And then they could be like, so how long are you staying? And that kind of caravan Silk Road culture really pervades Central Asia.
Wow.
And I don't know if it comes from culture, like pre-Islamic. I think it does. But it's very much in the whole region. And it's fun to read the New Testament and the Old Testament,
Yes.
and see it through that cultural lens of hospitality. So even though we've been there 12 years now, we're still guests. I not often, but less often now, get pulled over while I'm driving. And often the police are like, "Oh, well, you're an honored guest. Please drive safely," and they don't give me the citation. So,
Oh, interesting.
as a guest, there's almost nothing you could do that's wrong. Like
Really?
they will cover the shame. Oh, do you have time for a funny story?
Oh, yeah.
So years ago, my oldest is 10 now. My youngest is 10. Years ago, we were in an apartment and we made friends with a neighbor. And I brought over pictures of my family from here, like all the parents and sisters and all the people, and was sharing the pictures because we didn't have an oven. And she said, if you need to borrow an oven, please use mine. So I brought over a birthday cake for my son to bake in her oven. And I had invited them to cake and tea to celebrate his birthday later that afternoon. So we're sitting there and the cake is in the oven looking at pictures, and she pulls out her tablet and shows me picture after picture of beautiful cakes. And I didn't know it, but she had been a professional baker who would bake cakes and then give them to like the bakeries to sell.
Oh, wow.
And the cake I'm not a bad cook. These poor neighbors, every time I cooked for them, it turned out terribly. And this was only the first. I used the wrong kind of pan. And so it was not cooking in the middle and it was burning on the edges. And she was doing everything she could think of to fix it. And like, it ended up, by the time the middle cooked, the top was burnt. And she's like, you could just, cut it off and frost it. And I was like, okay. And then I take my terribly cooked cake and I'm like, see you later.
Wow.
So they come
You could
over.
have just asked her to whip one up.
Well, so a few hours later, they come over and in their hand is a cake box from the store that they brought.
That's a friend.
And what they were doing is, it's shameful for me to serve such a terrible cake, right? This is a shame honor culture. And so
really?
being hospitable and being the hosts of this country, to us, the guests, wanted to make sure that we were not shamed by serving something so terrible. And so even though they were the guests, there's nobody else. It was just their family. They brought a cake so that I had something decent to serve.
There's something beautiful about that, though.
Yeah.
Here in America, we would just make fun of each other. Like, we would just bust on each other, I think. I don't know. There's something in a way that's really beautiful if we would just cover each other, in a way. But I could see how that also could not be healthy. But
it could also, humans are humans. You could always be manipulative and passive aggressive if you wanted to.
Yeah, for sure.
If the cake was beautiful and she still brought a cake, I'd be like,
yeah, true. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it just stuck out to me because here, it's all about, inviting someone. We're very much, one of the things I miss about living in Iowa so we lived in Iowa before Oregon. We're originally from Jersey. And it's probably the one place I miss the most, in that no other place where we lived did we have such a huge community where it was, I grew up, you don't lock your doors. We grew up at the Jersey Shore, people just can't, we didn't have any reason to lock our doors. So I grew up just very like, hey, come on in. You want to come down, come on over. So it was very much community. My mom's very community. Iowa, out of all the places we lived, we wound up just getting a whole huge group of friends, a whole community that was very much that, they'd call me and say, this one woman in particular who we were really close with, she was like, hey, I'm at your house. When are you going to come home? And it didn't bother me. It was like, oh, well, help yourself. Won't be home for about an hour. So she's like, well, just so you know, I took some of your chocolate chips, blah, blah, blah. See you later. And it was just very much that way. I trusted whoever was coming through that door, and I didn't mind that they were there. And any given night, 5 nights a week, we could have a ton of people over for dinner. And it was just, I just missed that about the Midwest. And we joke about the Midwest, it's just so boring because it's cold, it's flat, there's not a whole, it's, not big city, it's a lot of smaller cities. And so we always joke, there's nothing else there, but that is really what brought the community. It's a tight community. And I have yet to find a community like that anywhere else. We've lived in Texas and here, and we've had some really good friends, but it is really special.
Yeah. It is hard in America to get past the initial niceties. People are quick to be nice in a short interaction, but to get past that, at least in here where we live, to get past that to genuine friendship can be a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so if somebody, and we'll put whatever links we can in the notes, is the best way to learn more about what you do. If somebody's like, ooh, I felt a little nudge when Sarah was talking, I think I want to know more. Or maybe it's somebody going, yeah, why not? I'm going to just join her. Would that just be an email address? They could email you? Is that what we would put in the show notes? Okay.
Yeah, and I think we'll put a link to the organization that we have now. It's fine. Yep.
Yeah, wonderful. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing I can say, but I know people don't want to listen for hours, but it's really fun to share.
Well, if anybody is interested, you want to know more information, you have ways, maybe it's already on your heart and you want to say yes, we will put the contact information, some links in the show notes for you so you can get in contact with Sarah. But thanks again. It's just so beautiful and yet so hard at the same time. And but thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summer with your family before you go back. But yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks for having me, Dana. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.